Okay, let's get going. Good morning. My name is Nicole Deringer from Boundary Systems. Thank you for joining our weekly webinar series. As always, be sure to check our website at boundarysys.com for upcoming topics or visit our YouTube channel to see ones we've already covered. Today's presenter, is Jonas Harding, Business Development Officer from our sister office, PDS Vision in Europe. He will be presenting Aftermarket Portal powered by WIndchill and ERP. Just a few housekeeping notes. Participants are in listen-only mode at this time and throughout the entire presentation. Jonas welcomes questions throughout his presentation, however, but please use the questions pane, which is usually the GoToWebinar questions pane, which is usually located on the right-hand side drop-down menu of your screen. You can submit them at any time and he will tackle those. And with that, I will just turn it right over to Jonas to get started. There you go.
Thanks, Nicole. Good morning, everyone. And thanks for this opportunity to be able to present. Just a sort of a brief background on myself and our company. So as Nicole said, PDS Vision is today a sister company of Boundary Systems since 4 or 5 months now, I think, and I was one of the founders of this PDS Vision company, and I also predominantly have been working with the aftermarket solution here within PDS, starting out at sales and now more business development. So for those of you who don't know us, we are now a little over 100 employees with some. I think we have over 1,300 customers globally. We're a PTC Platinum partner, so obviously our biggest offering is around the Creo and WIndchill product suite, but we do also have some over 100 customers engaged in the aftermarket SLM arena. So that's a beautiful picture of myself as well for you all. So yeah, today's topic, the aftermarket portal powered by ERP and WIndchill. And I thought I'd just start with the end result of today's presentation. And I mean, the purpose here is that I'm going to demonstrate how you can utilize the information which is locked inside PLM and ERP to power an aftermarket site. And how you can kind of build a front end towards the customer, whether it'll be for information or e-business or just sort of consumption of documents and spare part information. So this is kind of the end goal, and I'll take you on a little bit of a journey from beginning to how we can end up in this situation. So just a bit of sort of what's happening on the market, a bit of background for you all. I think that most of you know that back in the days we sold products and we pretty much fixed them when they broke. Today we're seeing more and more increase of advanced service contracts. So contracts that pushes the responsibility for repair from the OEM, from the customer to the OEM. And I think that what we're also seeing in the future is that we're going to have performance-based contracts. So instead of buying heating, you'll buy things like a comfort or have a comfort agreement, and it's all tied to the subscription economy. And this puts high demands on sharing of information around aftermarket, and it also puts high demands in how we service parts and how we ensure delivery and good quality of information around parts. And I think it was back in 2008, 2009 that we really started to do something with this, and that was the bad economy, big economy downturn, and we were seeing that a lot of companies were turning to aftermarket and spare parts. It was the kind of the lifeblood of the company at those times. They weren't selling a lot of new products, but the spare part business, being very profitable, was a nice source of income. So there's quite a lot of money to be made if you do this this business right, we've learned. And PDS, we started back then to say, okay, maybe we should extend our offering a little bit from just being a company doing Creo and WIndchill sort of PLM and CAD, and extend it more into the aftermarket. And luckily, PTC was our partner. PTC was going the same way, and so we sort of started to say we need a second part of our business. So we always had the left-hand side of our offering around product development, design validation, change management, all of these things. But we then started to really focus on the aftermarket solutions. And today we're dealing with all sorts of aspects of aftermarket challenges. If you break our aftermarket offering down, it kind of consists of 4 major pieces. And starting from the left, we have the service parts, the PLM part, which is based on WIndchill and Creo. And next, we have the aftermarket portal from a vendor called Significant. I'm going to talk more about these two, which will be the main topic today. But we're also dealing with 2 other rather big topics, one being the industrial IoT portfolio with ThingWorx and Vuforia. And in a service aspect, the IoT is important for us because it allows us to monitor products. It allows us to predict maintenance tasks and suggest maintenance actions. And it also allows us to actually update software and configurations of the product remotely, so to perform remote service. Finally, we're also heavily engaged in the technical information side of things. So starting out with PTC's ArborText product, we have developed our own content management system that we call SimonsSoft. It's a content management system for small and medium-sized businesses, aimed to be a little bit more, easy to implement, affordable, and yet still relying on the ArborText portfolio from PTC. So these are our 4 main offerings that we have developed over the years, and although they are different solutions altogether, what we've done is actually spend quite some time to integrate them. So today, what I will present to you is that I will actually create information back in WIndchill and Creo Illustrate, and being able to publish that to the Significant server. We have similar links between our ThingWorx platform and the SimonsSoft CMS, where we can then write and author content in the SimonsSoft system and then publish this into the Significant platform. So starting from the very beginning then, this is something that became clear and evident rather soon, is that the bill of material that we rely on in WIndchill is not very suited from an aftermarket perspective. The bill of material is at best broken down for some manufacturing purposes or engineering purposes, and it does not take into account the how you want to sell the product as an aftermarket. So early on, we saw the need to redefine the bill of material that we needed for aftermarket, and we tend to name that an S-BOM, S as in service or as in spare part. And we say that this BOM is a downstream BOM, and I'll explain what I mean with that. Is that basically it relies on the engineering BOM in terms of what parts are in it, and the top level assembly is probably the same as in the engineering world, but broken down, it's probably completely different. You probably want to create kits, so rather than selling just one product, you probably want to sell a kit of products. If there might be tools needed in the service area that in order to make a repair that are not necessary in the engineering bill of material. You might have to add parts that are only relevant for the service area, and you might also have to have different serial numbers. So imagine that in the engineering world, you really only have one valid component for each part, whereas in the service world, you actually have can have multiple valid ones depending on in which time the product was purchased by the end customer. So the service BOM lives a little bit of a life of its own, but very much related to the engineering BOM. And there's of course a lot of data that you can reuse from the engineering bill of material. And the other part of it is that within WIndchill and in your CAD system, you're already defining the 3D geometries and you're doing very nice 3D designs. And the idea here is that we also want to reuse those. Now, PTC has released a tool called Creo Illustrate that some of you may know. I'm not going to go into detail on this webcast around Creo Illustrate. There's a separate webcast talking about specifically Creo Illustrate as a product. But what it does is basically is that it reuses CAD data through WIndchill. It allows you to explode and create exploded views and images in a very simple manner. It's aimed for anyone who's actually in technical documentation or production engineer or aftermarket engineer. So it's that easy to use that you don't have to have the knowledge of a CAD system to be able to produce these images. And you can also version control the images and the content inside WIndchill, as it has a direct link to WIndchill. So looking at the process a little bit is that what we call a parts preparation process. Now, the first thing here is maybe that when we come into companies, this is a little bit new thing for them, because the spare part process is typically such that somebody in the aftermarket part of the company defines the spare parts, probably in the ERP system, or some completely remote system, Excel or whatever happens. And now we're saying to them, well, you're actually going to move into WIndchill and start your part preparations process in there. So it also puts a little bit of a challenge to the organization in how they're working today. So the idea is that in WIndchill, you actually reuse the engineering BOM to define the service BOM structure. What you do then is you add any aftermarket attributes and metadata that you're interested in. This could be things like whether it's purchasable, whether it's part of a kit, if there's a serial number. It could be a torque or something like that. Once you've defined your service bill of material and the breakdown structure that you want to have of the service bill of material, you probably export it to Creo Illustrate. Using the PVset file inside WIndchill is a good way of doing this, and then you can create your exploded illustrations, position it, add material, place, draw callouts, and just make sure you have a nice and tidy image for it. Once you're done, you check this back into WIndchill and you release the service bill of material. So what we've done now is that we, in reality, have created everything which is in a spare part catalog. The only thing we really haven't done is we haven't printed it. We haven't put it on paper or sent it out as something like that. So I'm just going to show a couple of interface for this in WIndchill, how this looks in WIndchill, and also maybe give a view on the modules that you use in WIndchill to do this. Now, I am not a demo star person. I can walk my way around WIndchill, but I will do my best to see if I can get this. Let's see here. Here we are. So in WIndchill, I have opened up a structure And this structure you can see is a service structure. The component itself is what's called a row unit. And to give you a bit of context on the row unit, this is a part of a farming machinery. So it actually, you put seed in this little bucket here, and when you drive around with your tractor, you actually it plants seeds. And the company that we're working with for this is a company called Väderstad, and they're medium-sized, I would say, farming equipment manufacturer that we have as a reference customer as well. So all of the stuff that I'm showing you is in fact based on their the WIndchill part is based on their pilot project, and then I'm going to demonstrate the catalog as well based on the live catalog that they actually have up on their web right now. So coming back to this, the row unit here is the demonstration object. I have, as you can see, a little odd symbols here, and what this is really just a subtype of a part in WIndchill that we have created that allows us to build a catalog structure. So in fact, this is not a part structure. This is the structure in which how I want to display parts in the aftermarket solution. So it's very much oriented around how we then want to present this information later on. If you drill down into spare parts, you'll see another interesting symbol, which then is a page in a parts catalog. So basically the service bill of material, you could say, on a high level, this company doesn't do spare part bill of materials or service bill of materials on a top level machine. They are only working with modules. So the highest level of a spare part BOM you will find on a very modular level in this company. And it's because on a machine there can be 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 row units. So it's impossible to represent the top assembly of this type of component. If we then drill down into the row unit, you'll actually start to see some parts, and you can actually see a little interesting thing here to begin with, that there is actually 2 linkage in this one. And the linkage, so that's kind of funny that they have 2. Why would they do that? Well, the answer is simple. They're in different serial numbers. So the older machines has 1 linkage and the newer machine has another linkage. And what they've done then is they've actually used what's in WIndchill called a usage attribute. So I'm not sure how familiar you are with that, but the usage attribute is basically an attribute related to the spare part BOM and has no relevance for the engineering BOM. This allows them to actually put attributes on the spare part context. So things like, does this part contain other parts which are spare part? Is it purchasable? Is it included in a kit? And they can actually also add a serial number range or things like that. So the usage attribute of a service BOM is the responsibility of the aftermarket person and not the engineer. So the engineer will, in Väderstad case, is actually saying spare part candidate, yes. So they are actually defining what parts are possible to sell as spare part, whereas the aftermarket engineer defines what they want to have as spare part. So building up this structure, they are basically then creating the spare part bill of material. And the tool they use to define the spare part, the SBOM, is a tool called NPM link. It's a WIndchill term. It basically means that you're, could hope that it was going to open. Let's see here. Do this again. Little refreshment of my browser. Danger of doing this live. Here we go. So what npm link is actually a tool that allows you to do any upstream, downstream kind of management of bill of materials. So the same tool would be used for creating a manufacturing BOM if you were into manufacturing. And if we start looking at the bill of material here now, we'll see that once I open the service bill of material, WIndchill understands that it's a downstream bill of material from my perspective. And it then automatically goes and finds the relevant upstream one from WIndchill and presents that on the left-hand side. So now I have my service BOM on the right-hand side, my engineering BOM on the left-hand side, and as you can see, they're quite different, right? The bill of material on the left-hand side has completely different levels than on the right-hand side, and on the as the visualization is always a part of this. So it's quite convenient as well. I can click either on a part and get it to display, or I can click on a module and see it display. And this is typically an interesting thing. So the linkage here, Vedosta has defined as a very interesting sub-module that they really want to position, but there is no equivalent part of this on the other side. So if I were to query this system for the equivalent part, it would say you basically don't have one. So as what we've done in this case is that all parts that are defined on the right-hand side has an extension S, meaning that they're a spare part unique object. If it doesn't have a spare part unique object, it has an equivalent on the other side. So you'll find, let's see, select equivalent part on the other side. So you'd actually see that it has a similar part on the engineering bill of material. But as the structure is quite different, it's oriented towards how we want to present this in a catalog, as well as what are logical breakdowns of it. Here you can actually see a new little blue symbol, and that indicates a part which then is unique to the service side. So it's something that is a service part that does not have an equivalent on the left-hand side. And as the engineer, when the engineer works in this tool, when the parts engineer or whoever responsible for doing something, what you basically do is on the left-hand side, well, you can actually use the visualization here as well to simplify life. What you actually do is you just pick something on this side, you copy it, and you say, okay, I want to reuse this component in the frame, and I hit where's the do a copy again, copy, and we'll put it in to the frame. So it'll basically then check out the yes, I want to go ahead, even though it's there already. It warned me that the component was already there, so I'm kind of pasting the same axis twice now. And it checks out the service bill of material, places the axle in the right context, and I'm basically done. So when doing this, it becomes also quite important that you have a set of reports that you're able to track things like what is updated on the left-hand side. What are there any sort of anomalies here, equivalent parts that doesn't exist, or things like that. Furthermore, you also need to be doing some reconciliations and reports on this so that you, especially if you have deep structures and there's a lot of change happening on the engineering side. So there's a rich set of tools in here that you can use in order to support you as the parts engineer. And the key advantage here is obviously that I can start creating my service bill of material much earlier in the design process, because as changes happen, as naming changes, or as smaller changes on the objects happen, my illustration and my spare part breakdown becomes rather intact, and it's very, very easy to update the information with this set of tools. So altogether, what I've done now is literally I've taken my engineering BOM, I created my service BOM, I consumed all the parts on the engineering side, and I have then generated a complete service BOM and filled out all my usage attribute, and I consider myself being done as a service engineer. From this point on, what I probably have to do is then, as I showed you, I have to fill out documentation, add documentation that I'm interested, manuals, brochures, whatever I'm going to have. And I also probably need to add then my, start creating my images. So I create my images, I attach them to the top level of each module where it's needed. And I check them into WIndchill as well, building up a complete catalog set, if you will. So then we've kind of taken it from design to an engineer to service state, and I'm going to go back to the presentation now, and I'm going to then talk a little bit about where we're going to put this information. What are we going to do with this information? All right, so the significant aftermarket portal is I like the term affordable, because we did look at some other options without saying anything too much that weren't really affordable. And we were really, because of where we come from, we're predominantly working with medium-sized businesses or small, medium-sized businesses. It was important that we find a solution that was affordable. So we started to work with this vendor, and it was kind of a coincidence where we met up in some common projects. Significant started out with a Swedish truck manufacturer called Scania, and was the backbone of their aftermarket delivery. And some other things were, of course, that it was important for us that we were able to integrate well with this, that we were able to connect it to WIndchill and have a standard integration, and that we could actually get access to developers and staff that would listen to us and make those enhancements that we needed. Furthermore, another thing that we looked at why we worked with Significant was actually the interface, that we liked the modern interface and how it worked very well on all cross platforms, on iPad and other things like that. There's a lot of information on this slide, and I think that you'll be having access to the presentation afterwards, and you can, and we'll share it with you. So if you want to read up on some of these things, but the idea is basically to have a one-stop shop for all aftermarket information, and different customers, different needs. Some customer more standardized products, some customers very deep structure with like a forklifter or a truck. Others with many products and not so, and very shallow structures. Some need to have track of their machine cards or their as maintained product. Others don't care about that. They simply filter on serviceable. Some customers have very configurable products. Others have relatively variant stable structures. So our customers tend to have a slight different way they deploy it, but it's a standard product. So it's not like a toolkit that you build up from scratch, and it's more of a standardized product that you then configure to your and tailor to your need. And obviously the customer front end then varies a little bit depending on who you are. But there is always a customer front end, and all customer front ends are tailored with company colors, with company fonts and tends to look a little bit like your own web page. But don't mistake it for being able to completely rip it down and look exactly like your web page. But it's more of it because it is a standardized tool. If you look at Atlas Copco, which was the example of the slide before, they are one of the customers that have deployed this together with WIndchill PLM Link. And they have in fact actually deployed it with a content management system and their own product information system. So every night there is a batch run of information distribution to the significant server, and the only every now and then there's like a verification process that is manual, or if there is manual entry of data, there is a management interface to this product. But it's with Atlas Copco, it's very, very rarely used because they don't want to rely on manual input of information to a system like that. And then once it's imported, every night it produces a number of viewers. So they today actually produce 2 web viewers, one for internal staff and one for external, and then they actually produce one which is offline as well for offline purposes. Then the user would filter, purchase, pick up things and order them. And once they order them, they would actually order them from SAP directly. So they wouldn't actually place an order in this system. The order would be placed directly into their SAP system. And because of the integration with SAP, they could then see things like inventory levels. They can see pricing. They can see all sorts of information that is related to SAP and instead of WIndchill. So in WIndchill, there's kind of a sense that there are some system that is powering this solution on a more export-import kind of a scenario, and then you have the ERP, which is more of a direct interface that shows a value that is valid at the moment, so it's like an instant rather than an imported value. So why don't we just take a look at the tool itself? And I thought so I'm going to go back to our friends at Väderstad, and I'm actually thought I'd go into their web page and see what happens under service and parts. And you can actually do this yourselves afterwards if you're interested. And here's a little tab called Parts Catalog Online. That seems like us. Yay! So they actually have it seems 2. They have a US business, a Canada business, which has 1, and where they haven't really launched the significant product yet. So I'll make sure to click this one where I know they actually launched the significant product. So clicking that, you can actually see from here that I'm in a significant portal now. I can then start to search things. Once I search, I actually search within article names, I search within part names, or I actually in any other metadata attribute, and it can actually even search an index content in a document if needed. I can if I don't like searching, I can actually browse. I can browse through menus, or browse quite a few products, these guys, or I could actually navigate through images if I need to. So what they've done is basically when you come to a spare part catalog of a certain product, they've created like a top level page with very, very simplistic graphics. Here you could actually use a Creo Illustrate image as well, should you like. So I'm going to go into the Ferox Here's one. Oh, sorry. What it did actually, when I searched inside a catalog, it would actually search just within that catalog. So I had to go back. I have no idea what to take. So this is going to be random. Let's take this one. Not many parts to buy on this one. Seems to be a big thing here that I can buy. So the balloons, of course, the clickable balloons comes from the Illustrate image. There's no extra rework for that. So exporting from Creo Illustrate, you end up exporting an SVG image that is then presented here, which means that the graphic is both lightweight but also very, very accurate. We started out this project with 3D content. They wanted to have 3D content. Then we ended up saying, no, maybe we should have just colored pictures. And then they ended up testing the bandwidth in Ukraine, deciding that no, it's black and white images. That's where we're going to land. So you can actually see that it's Creo Illustrate that created these images. It removes some of the lines, and it really makes a rather nice picture. And you can have like mini images, or the setup of this is quite configurable, so they're quite different. Each customer will look quite different if you go into it. As you can see, I can't really buy anything. There is nothing here, to allow me to buy this, or actually I can't even see article numbers or anything. So and that's actually how they share their content. They said that we don't want our customers to be able to buy this online. We want them to be contacting their local vendors, and it could be an agent, it could be a Verdestar owned, fully owned subsidiary, but they do not want to do that business directly with the customer. And this was a long debate before they ended up in that decision. So instead, actually, I'm going to log in here. And let's see if it remembers me. Otherwise, yay. Thanks to Oh, by the way, I didn't show that because now I actually logged in from the international page, and I'm actually in the English page. But if I would have logged in first time, it actually threw me to the Swedish page. So the page was selected by the browser on the machine which logs in. And if I'm not happy, I can actually change my settings. I can change actually the language setting, which is the language of the user interface, but I can also change the data language. So they are actually translating even the parts names and their documents to some languages. So depending on my interest or my country of origin, I might be in another country, I can actually reset. So and for the data language, there is actually a little internal translation engine that allows you to translate these texts separately from other content within this one. Let's now then see what happens if I open up the Ferox. So by the way, I'm live. This is their production system, so I am not allowed to order anything in here because that will actually be a real order, and I've promised not to order anything today. And oh, let's see. Now I'm wondering why I didn't get all the. Okay. Oh, right. Because I was too high up. I was still at the top level. I need to come down to the actual spare parts level. That's why I'm starting to see. So let's pick this one up. All right. So what does it say here? This part has expired. Okay. So I couldn't order that one. That's a shame. I should prepare my demonstrations slightly longer. Oh, here we go. Here's something which costs 30.10 euros. Euros and dollars, I think, are the same today, aren't they? More or less. And I can add this to order, and it will then just basically, make a start picking in my order basket. And I can actually see area warehouse. So based on my area assignment, so this system is now linked to, I think it's about 5 different area ERPs that provides the logistical data. So it says I have 33 in stock. I can add one to order, and I can check my order here and see that it's actually that I can go and ask for shipment. So the system will actually remember me. I'm logged in, so it'll understand who I am. Here I can also track older orders. I can have standard orders. I can say that I want to order a similar thing that I did last time, or we can have like regular orders that are coming in here with the standard thing. So let me do this. Let me just clear order before I leave here. Yeah, so just coming back to perhaps the sort of overall structure here is that one of the things that Versta was seeing is they had a trouble to sell their wear parts. Many of their dealers were selling piracy parts, and they were promoting other vendors' wear parts, even though their own parts that much, you know, they weren't more expensive. It was just simply that they might have higher margins, or they were able to cut higher margins on them. So what they also wanted to do is they wanted to present all their wear parts this very early on in the process and very visible. And as you can see, those are very flat structured. Just one of them. There's nothing. The C disk is the C disk, and so they really wanted to be able to promote this. And also what they wanted to do is that, because they were a little bit concerned, you know, that making sure that the right information was here, that people were ordering the right disk, they actually defined these disks in WIndchill and linked the disk to the relevant assemblies. So in WIndchill, they say that this disk is linked to these service bill of materials, and they create a manual link of this inside WIndchill that now allows you to browse and see in what part catalog are you actually using this disk. So the whole used by is inherited from their WIndchill system. So yeah, let's try to click as little as possible in this system before we go out. Actually, you know, if you're watching now, you can note this. You can actually go into this link and you know, play around a little bit yourself and see how the system is set up. So with that, we have quite a few references. We have done quite a few cases on this over the last years, and we've grown quite a bit of experience. And I really, you know, take the chance to reach out to your boundary representative, and if you want to hear more about any of these companies and what they do, I'm almost sure that we can arrange either a show or even a virtual meeting with most of them. Perhaps going back to the business a little bit before we end, is that there are a few different things why people do this. I think it started out when people started out doing this, it was mainly the idea that an e-business platform online would increase business. And we have reports of that. The number of 20% increase, and its year-over-year increase of spare part sales comes from Komatsu Forest in Sweden when they introduced this. They didn't really, they're not powering their system with WIndchill or with a structured background. They're very manually updating the system, but they still feel it's worth it because of the increase in spare part business they do. But the other areas where we're seeing a real benefit of this integration is, of course, one is the lead time. Versta is reporting up to 90% better lead time from an engineering change until the new spare part catalog is out and published on the web. And other things that we're actually seeing is this increased accuracy of delivery and first-time repair, because you allow your customers can actually identify what part they're referring to, instead of guessing and taking photos and calling your support engineers. And because the naming is now correct, because the part is named like the engineering part, which is the same as the ERP part, which is the same as the spare part, the quality of information increases, and then of course also accuracy increases in all of this. So with that, I think I'm done for now. I'm beginning to cough, and that's probably a sign that I've talked too much. I will be in the US starting May 21st, spending a few days over at Boundary Systems in Cleveland. If any one of you want to see me, want to know more or hear more, just reach out to Nicole or anyone with the Boundary team. I have no questions so far. Shall we perhaps allow a minute or so if you want to have some questions?
Yes, thank you, Jonas. Yes, we will pause for just a few minutes. If you have any questions, please write them on the question pane on the GoToWebinar toolbar, and Jonas will make sure he answers that. We'll give it a few minutes.
No questions so far. All crystal clear.
All right. Well, then with that, if there's anything that you think of, as Jonas mentioned, please feel free to reach out to your Boundary Systems representative. And thank you all for joining today's webinar. You can view it later at YouTube and see what's coming up next as well. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, and thanks for your time.